Hello there. I just want to make a quick video. I won't keep you for long. I guess on the topic of the things we take for granted and the things we should be grateful for. All the little things in our lives that, most people down through history never even had the luxury of. But also using this video game here, The Last of Us, to show how fast nature would take back the world if society actually collapsed. And the idea of how people honestly wish that happened, like wishing that society would collapse so that something else would take its place, but the anarchy of it, like most anarchists would promote. It's ridiculous when you think about it, and no one should really want that. I mean, I like order and society. I like being able to just buy luxuries or whatever, whereas back in the day, you would have had to scavenge for them, make your own, or barter and trade, much less before the Industrial Revolution, before all this great technology existed. But even the idea of being stuck in a world like this, I would probably have to go to scavenge mode. I mean, the zombie apocalypse isn't something that's really going to happen, but societal collapse and everything overgrowing itself, yeah, I mean, if it happened, what would you do? At that point, growing a garden is kind of mandatory, but also, there's things that we take for granted, like I said before, that we couldn't really get back. And once they ran out of them, that would be it. That would be all. Like lighters and matches for fire. Like, how convenient really is that we take it for granted and would miss it if it was gone? Even things like fingernail clippers and scissors and the ability to clean ourselves up in a household type setting. Much less the concept of medicine or keeping alcohol on hand to disinfect a wound, or bandages, or, just getting haircuts or razor blades to shave. Like, that's a relatively recent invention. Before that, you had to go to the barber kind of thing, get a professional shave, do it yourself. A lot more dangerous. But then also the concept of, doctors. Like, imagine in this game here, you're running around, you're looking for stuff to survive, and you break your ankle. You're screwed, especially if you're far from home or whatever, and there's no doctors to reset the bones, much less the idea of making a cast. And obviously, if you had the supplies, you could do your own cast. But therein lies another thing, like running water, power, infrastructure. And there are alternatives, obviously. Like, you could get a water filter, you could tap or dig a well. And as far as power goes, I mean, your only options are really solar power or wind turbine power. At that point, a gas generator, well, gasoline is one of those things that wouldn't last very long. This game gets that wrong, actually. The idea that gas is still good after years and years. Nah, it would go sour within a year. But the idea of getting, solar power or whatever, it's possible. It's even possible to prepare now for such things and not even need to pay a hydro bill or a power bill. But society and order, people who wish for anarchy, it's like, be careful what you wish for. It might come to pass. And in my opinion, it's kind of dough-headed. And then there's also the idea of guns and bullets. But I've known people throughout life who can make guns and bullets from scratch, But without a power generator, how are you going to function a CNC machine, much less a machine shop to do such things like pressing bullets? You don't really need power for that, but you do need power for a shop to use tools to build stuff. Also, another big thing would be communications. We take communications for granted, and it's just the simple idea of picking up a phone and calling anyone anywhere. Even back in the day before all this technology, the idea of calling an ambulance if something happened, or calling the cops if, angry pirates tried to invade your home or something. So obviously the idea of anarchy, it's the people who want that aren't thinking it through. And then there's also things like food stores, grocery stores, whatnot. But in a way, this has made us very codependent on the system. Because you're talking about a population shift where back in the day, 80% of people came from a rural setting and could get their own food like a farmer or a homesteader. And city folk and people who couldn't and who were completely dependent on the urban setting was 20% of the population. But now it's switched. 80% of the people are in cities, codependent and kind of trapped, and 20% are on the farm and on the homestead. And so when you think about those numbers, 8 out of 10 people don't know how to get their own food, basically, without the grocery stores. Also, stuff we take for granted, like power and sewing machines, the ability to just make clothing, or go to the store and buy clothing without having to scavenge or wear a potato sack. I mean, your shoes. Shoes are incredibly hard things to make, and we just take that for granted. We go get a pair of shoes, whatever, right? But without all these wonderful clothing stores, forget about it. And then, like I was saying before, gas for cars and travel, like, it would be going back to horseback in an instant. Like, horses would be very valuable in this situation because, like I said, gasoline would go sour, and unless you got somebody producing more of it, that's all. But yeah, like, you want to trade security and safety for anarchy? I think that's insane. I would never want to do that. I don't even know why anyone would think about it. But even to snap back to reality, the idea that something like this in this video game, it's not even close to happening for us here in the West. There's maybe some places and war-torn places that are like this, and in that case, all you can do is get out of there. But where we're at now as a society, with the dollar collapsing and healthy food being harder to find, for people in cities, you could start a little garden, even a window garden, which is what I'm going to start doing this summer. And then for people with their own little pieces of property, an acre of land can feed like 5 families probably. And if you're going full bore, getting chickens and homesteading, like, these are all skills that I feel really stupid for not learning a lot earlier in life. Like, I always kind of wondered what would happen if there was no more grocery stores anymore, and I always thought, like, if society breaks down or whatever, what would I do? But now that there's an actual real possibility of something like that happening, I hearken back to the history books with the dirty 30s and the starvation and the whatnot. But as far as now, today, like, people in general, chickens and eggs, for one, it's one thing that's going to be worth more than gold in the future. And of course, getting like a water filter system is obviously key. With a little solar panel thing, almost anybody by themselves can survive if they have just a few of these things. And it's always about spare parts. That's the biggest thing we take for granted with society, is you can just run to the store and get spare parts. Now, obviously, as a Christian, these post-apocalyptic games and movies and all that are popular, like The Walking Dead and whatnot, it's all moot, really. Because while society might go a little Hunger Games for a while, it won't last forever, and whatever the birth pangs and the tribulation are, whatever the time is, because no man knows the time, when I say it's moot, in a sense, it means at worst, a person or a family would have to survive a few years through the tribulation before prophecy is filled and basically Jerusalem comes back. As far as just this concept of society collapsing, this game would be worst case scenario in a way. And, that doesn't even get into the idea of marauders, people wanting to kill you, rebels, savages, cultists, not necessarily the idea of zombies in this game. The cordyceps virus mutates and starts infecting mammals. However, the worst thing to happen in a societal collapse is bandits and marauders. Most people, they start to become savage. And a good example of that would be the movie Book of Eli. However, again, Scripture tells us that we're not going to have to sit and wait in some post-apocalyptic wasteland for 100 years before anything happens. That's just not how the tribulation goes. And so these movies and games, in the end, they just put the idea in your head, and almost like an egregore speaking it into existence, which is not necessarily a good thing. In fact, it's not a good thing at all. But as far as using the example of surviving, scavenging, this game, in my opinion, shows a really well done example of how fast nature would take the world back. And I'm just sort of OCD for watching this footage and seeing just how everything looks, and everything's just so messed up. So, yeah, I guess really that's all I had to say about that. I just wanted to make this quick video after seeing this, and it just got me thinking about all these things we take for granted, especially Bic lighters, matches, running water. But, most people drink bottled water or filter their water. But even still, little things that without our lives might just be unbearable. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. So peace out, baby.